Jon Snow was a man torn between duty and love, family and destiny. To save the realm, he would lose everything. This is the story of how one man's choices changed the fate of a world. He wasn't a Stark, not truly. He was the bastard son of Lord Eddard Stark, a constant reminder of a supposed infidelity. Jon grew up alongside his half-siblings, Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran and Rickon. He loved them dearly, and they loved him back. But there was always this distance, a line he just couldn't cross. Catelyn Stark, Ned's wife, never let him forget his place. This early life shaped him in a profound way, giving him a deep feeling of not truly belonging and a yearning to prove his worth. The Night's Watch offered just that. It was a brotherhood of outcasts, criminals, and forgotten sons. For Jon, it was a chance to escape the stigma of his birth. He imagined a life of honor and purpose, standing on the wall, defending the realms of men. Life at the Night's Watch, well, it wasn't the grand adventure Jon had imagined. Castle Black was a crumbling ruin, and his new brothers were honestly not all noble men. They were thieves and murderers, bitter and broken. Jon's initial arrogance, born from his privileged upbringing and superior training, quickly isolated him. But his friends, like Samwell Tarly, taught him a different kind of strength. Through his friendship with Sam, Jon learned that respect is earned not through skill, but through compassion and understanding. He started to see his brothers not as criminals, but as men. Jon's sense of justice soon set him apart. He stood up for the weak, defending Sam from the relentless bullying of their training master. His time beyond the wall tested him in ways he never imagined. Captured by the free folk, he was forced to question everything he believed. He met Ygritte, a wildling woman who showed him a different way of life, a life of freedom. Their love was real and passionate, but it was doomed from the start. His ultimate choice to return to the Night's Watch was agonizing. He had to betray the woman he loved to honor the vows he had sworn. Jon Snow did not seek power, but his willingness to do what was right, even at great risk, earned him the trust of many. In a moment that would define his legacy, Jon was elected Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. The weight of leadership settled on his shoulders. The brothers of the Night's Watch looked to him for guidance, some with hope, others with doubt. Jon knew that every decision would test his courage and convictions. Jon's greatest test as a leader came swiftly. The wildlings, long seen as enemies, gathered at the wall seeking refuge. He saw not invaders, but desperate families fleeing a terror greater than any border, the White Walkers. With the senior officers gone, Jon listened to the wildlings' pleas and saw their fear. Against centuries of hatred, he chose compassion over tradition, deciding to open the gates. His words inspired some, but many of his brothers saw only betrayal. The Night's Watch was divided. Some stood with Jon, others turned against him, believing he had betrayed them for the wildlings. Jon's decision to open the gates was an act of courage and empathy. He led the wildlings through, breaking the cycle of fear and hatred that had lasted generations. But his compassion came at a price. Many in the Night's Watch saw his actions as betrayal. Tension simmered, and Jon found himself surrounded by suspicion and anger. In the end, Jon's commitment to unity and mercy cost him dearly. His own brothers, blinded by old fears, turned against him, believing he had betrayed them for the wildlings. They conspired in secret. One by one, they struck him down, muttering the words, "For the Watch." Jon paid the ultimate price for his belief in a better world. His death was not just a tragedy, but a testament to his courage. Jon Snow chose unity over division, compassion over hatred, and paid for it with his life. Jon Snow's death was not the end. Brought back by Melisandre's magic, he returned with a new purpose, to unite all the living against the coming darkness. But to do so, he would have to prove the threat was real. With a small band of companions, Jon ventured beyond the wall into the frozen wilderness. Facing blizzards and the relentless dead, they risked everything to capture a white, a living corpse, to bring back as proof. The mission nearly cost them their lives. Surrounded by the undead, Jon fought with desperate courage. Only through sacrifice and determination did they escape, bringing the captured White south. Presenting the White to Daenerys and Cersei, Jon forced them to confront the truth. The sight of the living dead shattered old doubts and rivalries. Realizing the threat of the White Walkers, Jon and Daenerys forged an uneasy alliance. Their meeting at Dragonstone was tense, but both knew the fate of the world depended on unity. Jon pleaded for help, warning of the army of the dead marching south. Daenerys demanded loyalty, but Jon stood firm. This was a war for survival, not for thrones. Despite mistrust and old rivalries, Jon and Daenerys forged an uneasy alliance. Their armies, Northmen, Unsullied, Dothraki, began to prepare together for the greatest battle the world had ever seen. Jon traveled to King's Landing, risking everything to convince Cersei Lannister to join the fight. The fate of humanity now rested on setting aside centuries of hatred for a single cause. The alliance was fragile, threatened by suspicion and pride, but Jon's determination inspired others. For the first time, North and South, dragons and men, stood together against the night. As the armies gathered at the wall, the true enemy approached. Jon Snow's greatest legacy was not just in battle, but in bringing together a fractured world to face the end together. In the shadow of the wall, Jon Snow stood at the center of history, no longer just a bastard or a king, but the leader who united the living against the dead. The fate of the world would be decided not by bloodlines, but by courage, unity, and hope in the face of darkness. The great revelation of Jon's life came quietly, revealed to him by his best friend Sam. He was not Jon Snow, the bastard of Winterfell. He was Aegon Targaryen, the true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. He was the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. This news did not bring him joy, it brought him turmoil. It meant the man he had called father had lied to him his entire life. In the end, Jon faced his most difficult choice. Daenerys, consumed by grief and a lust for power, destroyed King's Landing, becoming the very thing she had sworn to defeat. Jon saw the tyrant she had become. He loved her, but he loved the people more. With a heavy heart, he made the ultimate sacrifice for the good of the realm. He killed the queen he loved to save the world from her fire and blood. His story does not end on the Iron Throne. It ends where it began, in the north. Exiled for his crime, he returns to the Wall. He rides north of the Wall with the free folk, the people who taught him about freedom. He leaves the politics and power struggles of the South behind. His legacy is not one of a king, but of a hero who did what was right, no matter the personal cost. Jon Snow's journey inspires because he always chose the harder right over the easier wrong, and in the end, he found his peace not in a crown, but in freedom.